Welcome everyone to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross, and this is Unstuck with Sheila Wenger. I am thrilled to have Sheila with us here today. She is the owner of Shift Hypnosis and the host of Shift is Happening podcast. And Sheila is not your average hypnotherapist. She is a powerhouse of knowledge and experience in the realm of unlocking the power of human consciousness. Sheila, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
So I would love for you to share with everybody a little bit of your journey or story, because I know you weren't always in hypnosis.
Right.
You were a teacher first. So if you could share with everybody how you got to this point.
Yeah. Well, it was quite a surprise to me, frankly, but I had taught French and English for 17 years and had kind of always wanted to be a therapist. And I really did love teaching, but I got to the point where the curriculum was in the way. I wanted to help these kids and their families. So I finally just took the leap and I resigned from teaching 7 years before I could have retired. And I went to a marriage and family therapy program to totally change and to become a therapist. About halfway through that program, we had to study hypnosis as one of our modules, and it blew my mind. I knew a little bit about it. Doing a deeper dive revealed this as something that might be one of the most underrated tools out there. So right then and there, I decided I was going to do an appointment, go get an appointment for myself, ask that hypnotherapist everything that they would tell me. And then after doing that, I immediately enrolled to become a hypnotherapist. I was going to add that to my credential. But I wanted to be a therapist. I wanted to help people's pain and trauma. And, I wanted to do the deep work. So when I went through that program, I went with all of my questions about that. I wanted to make sure I'm not just helping people lose weight and stop smoking, even though those are great things. I wanted to be able to do the deepest kind of work. So when I graduated, every question had been answered. I was completely convinced that I could change lives immediately and really effectively and fast. So I took a big chance. I said, honey, I'm opening a practice. And I still had about, a year and a half to go in my marriage and family therapy program. I was going part-time, but I had about a year and a half to go. And I thought, I can open as a hypnotherapist. I'm going to do it. So I did. And my gut was right. I was getting tremendous results immediately, and they were sending me client after client. And I was able to replace my teacher salary plus in that first year because it just worked so well for people.
Wow. And that's amazing. I love that you do that, because most people would have even been afraid to even take a leap, especially when you're getting so close to like retirement and yes. worried about losing the funds. And the fact that you had obviously a husband that supported you is a huge part too.
Yeah. And I just said, I would rather do something that I want to do really badly for the rest of my life than to just work 7 more years and stop. So we were both all in.
Wow. That is amazing. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the common barriers that you think prevent us from taking action, or what we know will make us feel better?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, it's usually in our subconscious. So most of us know what we want to do, and we can convince ourselves that it's good for us and that we'll feel better if we do it. Whatever habit we want to change, whatever thing we want to change in our lives, we can intellectually know that it's possible and that we want it, and something stops us. And what stops us is something in our subconscious. And it's not that someone has a weak will or that they just aren't strong enough. Our subconscious protects us from what we are afraid of. And that is exactly what I move out of the way. Now, the way that gets there is because of former experiences that hurt us. And our subconscious, we are made out of goodness and love. So it's saying, we don't want you to take that risk if you're going to get hurt again. But we can train the subconscious and we can heal the subconscious to know that that was circumstantial. It happened before in your childhood, in your trauma, because of the problems, the pain that people around you who were in charge had inside of them. It wasn't because you didn't deserve it. So when we can heal that, then they know, oh, I am capable of it. And they start to value and love themselves more. Then they give themselves more grace when the process is a little bumpy, because most change processes aren't a straight line. And then they can have the grace for like, okay, well, this was a day I didn't do as well on my goals, but that's because there was a whole bunch of stress that day. So I'll be fine tomorrow. And when they can then begin to treat themselves the way they've always deserved to be treated, they can make it through those bumps and keep going and make that change happen.
Wow. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I love the way you put that, because we need that change. We also need to make that change. Sorry, just my mind just went. Anyway.
I'm glad.
Sorry about that. I was like, whoa, yeah. So can you give us an example of that?
Oh, I could tell you stories all day. So let me pick the best one. Well, yes, this one was remarkable. A woman came to me and she had an experience in elementary school she knew that it had hurt her deeply, and she'd had therapy. So she came to me and she was urgent, and she said, I only can afford one session, but I know what it is. I just need you to get it out. And I'm like, well, I usually do an initial session first, but you seem really urgent and you can't afford the two. So I'll try it. So she had this experience where she was a very good student and she was a rule follower and she knew all the rules, and she got to be a recess monitor and wear this orange vest. And in that experience, she was in charge and she knew all the rules, and she was so proud of this orange vest. She knew she had earned it, but this kid started climbing something he wasn't supposed to. And she told him, you need to get down from there. That's the rule. And he said, you can't tell me what to do because you're an N-word. She knew that was holding her back, because she, in her position at work, she wanted to be more of a leader. And she had people telling her, you have what it takes, but you don't step up. You don't take the risks. And she knew something about that experience was part of it. So we did what age regression, we regressed to that moment. And I have a very precise healing process that convinces the little, 7-year-old there that it was never her fault. She didn't do anything wrong. She wasn't prepared that would ever happen. And that was that person and his parents and society's problem, not her, nothing about her. Right. And she had this experience in my chair where she was going from, wanting the vest so badly, this orange vest, and then having it be torn away from her. And then we healed that, and she's still in my chair. And now I'm showing her that because this is healed and she's feeling the healing, she's going to be able to do anything she wants to at work, because she now knows there was never one thing wrong with her. She always was that much of a leader. She always was that good, that good student. She opens her eyes at the end of this and she goes, oh my gosh, you did it. And I knew I did it too. I knew we did it. So she goes, well, I'll be back. That was amazing. And she left, and I had to email her a couple weeks later. I emailed her. I said, I was so touched by your experience. I just wanted to let you know how amazing I think this is going to go for you. She immediately replied back and she goes, it was amazing. I feel so free. And you know what I did? I left your office and I went and bought myself an orange blazer for work.
That was wonderful. Wow.
That was a really special one, but I could tell stories like that all day, but I'll keep it to a minimum.
It's amazing to see how it works. So let's dig a little more into that, because when you say hypnotherapy or hypnosis, I'm sure there's that stigma that goes around, and people wonder, or they're afraid, you're going to have them doing something weird that they shouldn't be doing. How do you address that with people?
Yeah, it's so unfortunate that they it's easy to confuse what a stage hypnotist is and hypnotherapy. And I'll be frank with you, I don't know what those stage hypnotists do. It's a completely different thing, but it must tap into the same tools in some way. But yeah, there are people who are afraid that you're going to put me under and then you're going to control my mind. And it doesn't work that way at all. First of all, they need to know that they are going to hear every single word I say. Hypnosis, they tend to think I'm going to be in some strange state of mind where you're going to take over. It does not work that way at all. You only have to be as relaxed as you are when you're zoning out to TV, or even when you're driving the car and you just realize, oh, there's my exit. That's the same. You're in a hypnotic state in those moments. So it's just a state of relaxation, only deep enough to where your critical factor, the one who's going to keep track of time, keep their own thoughts running, that just relaxes. And you're simply more open to new experiences. And you can simply just focus on what I'm doing and allow that to go. So it's just a heightened suggestibility. Now, the other thing that's important, though, is that they have to know my intent. My intent for my clients is pure love and desire to heal, because I know how bad the hurt is. I had my own. But if they're working with a hypnotherapist, they should trust their gut on their own feeling, not because that person could control them. They really can't.
Right.
But a good hypnotherapist should be all about their clients' healing, and not just their healing, but then their growth into all kinds of new dreams. And they can, their sixth sense will tell them if they're not getting a good vibe, find another one.
Yeah. I think too often we kind of ignore our sixth sense.
Yeah. Yes. And it's our best teacher. It really is our best teacher.
Yeah, we just have to listen. So how would you say hypnotherapy can help individuals overcome like the mental blocks that keep them from making positive changes in their lives? I mean, obviously that one worked with that lady, but there's many different levels of stuff. So
there are. Yeah. So what everyone has some kind of belief in there that's a limiting belief that they didn't have a choice but to believe. It's not their fault. They believe it. But so many people walk around feeling like I'm not as good as other people, or I'm just not good enough in general, or I'm the person who always gets left. We have, because of our experiences, these stories that we've had to believe because it's happened so many times. But what we don't really know, what people don't usually understand, is that by having the belief, we're contributing to those circumstances. We're expecting them. We're filtering reality through the glasses of that's going to happen to me again. And so we inadvertently play a role in it happening without knowing it. So what I have to do is get to that belief and then heal it the way I did with the woman in the vest. I have to get to where that belief began and then heal that. Okay. When that's freed up, they literally feel different. They're not so afraid to make a mistake because they know that's okay. They know they are okay. And so they stop feeling like they have to do it perfectly. And so that could translate if someone wants to lose weight, for example. So many people will have one day where they don't eat as well or whatever. And if they have no compassion for themselves, and they have too much judgment for themselves, they'll say, oh, there, I did it again. I failed. They didn't fail. They had one day that had extra stressors. So they were too exhausted to do it that day. And when they have compassion now for themselves, they can say, that's okay. That was just one day. And I completely understand why it would have been hard today, but tomorrow won't be. I'm going to make sure that I have more space and time to care for myself. And they can adjust. And over time, they can totally make that change. So the core belief is one of the things. And some other things I have to look for are, if they have fears. If they have fears, sometimes they just haven't asked themselves some of the big questions that will help alleviate those fears. So sometimes I'll explore who they believe they are in this universe and how they got those beliefs and, what feels true to them. And we can work with those because the fears often have an origin in unexplored questions. And once they explore those, it releases everything. And just one more feature is that I also help people become more able to handle their feelings. What often happens when someone's got a habit going is they've been trying to avoid a certain feeling. And so because it's so uncomfortable to feel it, they'll cover it with alcohol, cover it with food, cover it with, procrastination. But there's a feeling there that we can heal. It just needs healing. And so when I can identify the feeling, then do a session for healing that feeling, then it's just not there. So they don't need to cover it with anything. They don't need to overeat.
Wow. Yeah. So I was going to say, because I was going to ask you too, in your experience, so what are some of the effective strategies for breaking free from those harmful habits through hypnosis?
Yes. Well, there are so many. It would take a long time. But the first one is when we have a scary feeling, this is kind of a surprise to people. We're supposed to feel all of those feelings, even the really icky ones. They do something to us when we process them all the way through. That's why they're there. But some of them we don't want to feel. what happens when we go through the feeling is it doesn't actually take very long. When I have someone in my office, okay, the feeling's coming up, and I'll just say, okay, let's just stay with it for a bit and see what it has to say, and just feel it, and then let it express in words, tears, whatever. I'm not going to look at you, just express it. And they'll do that. And I'll say, tell me when it changes. The longest anyone has ever taken it to change in my office is 4 minutes.
Wow.
So when you think about a difficult feeling that we've been covering up with a habit for who knows, decades, years, only really being 4 minutes of deep discomfort, oh my gosh, it could have saved us years of sorrow and self-judgment and all of this. So I help people know that those feelings are okay. I help them process them with me so they don't have to do it alone. And if I teach them that if they come up when they're alone, how to put pillows around it so they can get through it, and get the support that they need to handle it, because that is just that pain releasing. And then they cannot have to feel that way.
Wow. Do you ever find it difficult, or do you ever have people come to you that think they know what it is, but it's not, and then they find out it's like something totally different?
Good question. Not very often, no. But they'll think when we're going to do age regression to get to the core of the pain, they'll think it's going to be certain memories that will come up, and often it's not those. Sometimes it's totally different ones. They are related to the same feeling, but there'll be things they didn't even remember. And then the subconscious does remember. And then it'll come back and they'll, oh my gosh, I hadn't thought about that wallpaper in my kitchen since I was a kid. Because the subconscious is so smart. It knows how to tap into their feeling and go, file back. When's the earliest time you felt that? And then that memory will arise. They don't even have to try.
That's amazing. So even if we think we can't remember, it's actually still there.
Yes, it totally is still there. It's wild.
Wow. And I know you have a lot of them, but can you share a success story of a client who experienced like a profound transformation through hypnotherapy?
Yes. Oh gosh, what kind do you want? I'll do two totally different kinds.
Okay.
Okay. So I have a woman who was sexually abused, raped, cheated on. And she came to me for sort of a fast food addiction. It was just like a fast food issue. And that's all she came to me for, is the fast food stuff. But what happened was we got to the core wound and we got that healed. And she, in her childhood abuse, she was never allowed to feel pretty because it was seen as sinful. So she always felt like it was bad to feel, beautiful. And so she is a beautiful woman who never felt beautiful. And we completely transformed that. And now she healed that wound, and now she knows that it's okay to feel good in your own body. It's okay to inhabit your body and just enjoy being in it. That healed. Then she was able to forgive her abuser, and that was massive. But before any of that happened, she already on the second session said, yeah, I just stopped driving. I just stopped going through the drive-thru. I haven't gone once since I saw you. And then we did all of the big stuff after that. And she said, I feel totally free. I even feel a little grateful for the pain I went through to have experienced this triumph. And I know that I'll never pass any of this on to my children. Wow. So that was a big one. And then just to do a fun one, just a little silly one. My father-in-law was one of my first clients, and he came to me because I was announcing to everyone, I think I can change your life. Come let me try it out. And he wanted to be more present in his life and work on his golf game. And he thought there was a relationship between the two. And so we worked on that. I did a really good session with him, and I had him visualize that feeling that he was feeling in my chair of presence while he was on the golf course, and that how he and that ball and that hole were one. There's a magnetism between the two when you enter the space of presence. I kid you not, he left my office and went to the golf course and golfed a hole in one. It's the most outrageous story I've ever had. it's not the most meaningful just to make a hole in
Yeah.
one happen, but it was really something.
That's so cool though, because a lot of times, sometimes it's hard to get your, family to back you up on new ventures and stuff like that. But,
Yeah.
you had that. But for your other story, I mean, that is just amazing, because I don't know many people, there's some, but not many people could look at a tragic happening like that and kind of like be thankful for,
For the pain
for the pain and stuff. Yeah.
It's a massive transformation to get to that point. And I know what it feels like because I've done it too. And I don't have pain anywhere near that severity, but I did have my own severe pain. And I know that feeling. I too now am grateful because I know that it helped me want to help people so much. And I wouldn't be so dedicated to it had that not happened. So that's what she's feeling. And it's incredible. And she was only with me for 4 sessions, I think. It was so quick. I do feel like those sessions, the big ones, are like a year of therapy in one session.
Wow. Yeah. And I guess at some level, she must have been kind of ready to, I guess, I would assume you would have to be ready at some point to kind of, for all of this to really work.
Yeah. And I'm glad that you said that. I've observed my results now are almost always profound. And at the beginning, they mostly were, but I would study like, what's the difference between the ones who really go all in? And there are 2 qualities that make someone really ready for this. And that is really wanting the change. If they don't truly want something, I can't do that much for them. They have to want it. And then the second thing is just this ability to be open. And if they come to me nervous, that's okay. We can talk about anything that makes them nervous, because we talk for a good 45 minutes to an hour before we even do this. But so they don't have to be feeling that way when they walk in the door. But I won't do hypnosis with them until they feel comfortable, that they know I have only their best interest at heart, that they're totally safe. I've explained the process. They know nothing untoward is going to happen. And then when they just feel like, okay, let's go on this adventure, that's the second element that they'll do really well if they have that.
Yeah, definitely qualities to have, because that's pretty much like anything. You can't really help people unless they want to be helped, or they're ready, or they're open to it.
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, you don't get the same results. Well, I know we have a lot more stories to share and tips to share, but we're going to take a quick break from a word from our sponsors, and we will be right back.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Bobby Aldridge with BAM Metrics. There are so many programs out there that measure your swing speed, sets, reps, your BMI, your body fat, but the one thing they're not measuring that's so essential is mobility. Mobility is the key. If you're measuring your mobility, your performance will get better and you will reduce your pain. I created BAM Metrics to make it easy for people to repeat the exercises so they could do it properly at home on their own. It's simple, it's easy to do, and from a senior to a pro athlete.
Relief for PTSD, anxiety, pain, insomnia, and many other ailments. Introducing Vibe, the world's only pocket PEMF device. You place in your pocket while cooking, cleaning, relaxing, watching TV, sitting at your computer, reading, or walking. Self-contained standalone device. No drugs. No other phone or Bluetooth connections required. No monthly subscription fees. No apps to download. No Bozone. The future of medicine is in the frequencies. Come join the revolution.
So can you tell us how, I mean, we talked about it a little bit, but how does hypnosis tap into the subconscious mind to reprogram those limiting beliefs and behaviors?
Okay, great question. It does it because of the signature of the feelings in the body. So if you have you've had a consistent feeling of inadequacy, for example, I'll just pick one, and you know how that feels because you felt it too many times. It's uncomfortable. And then when you're in the hypnotic state after my induction and you're very relaxed, I ask my clients to bring up that feeling. All they have to do is think of the times they felt it before because they have those. That is a somatic signature in the body. It first, it'll be in the chest for some people. The chest will be tight. However, whatever's going on in the body, it's that exact same feeling they felt the first time it happened. So then all you have to do is just say, this is tied to every other time you felt it. And the subconscious, when knowing that it's going back to an earlier one, will automatically pick one up that felt just like this. So it's pretty incredible, but it is because of the way it is in the body. The body does keep the score. And so that score is the same score it was when they were 2 or 1, or sometimes even in the womb.
Wow. I guess kind of like when something bothers us or when you have a certain loss, like me losing my husband, it hurt my chest. For his mother, it hurt in her stomach. It hurts different areas.
Yes. And I'll even ask them, where do you feel that? And they'll have a space. And it's funny, lately I've been feeling it too from them, but I don't know what that's about. But they'll have it in the body somewhere. And I'll say, okay, just feel that feeling. It'll take us back to it. And it does.
Wow. Okay. So what role would you say self-awareness then plays in the process? Because I would think you'd have to be very kind of self-aware and in the process, because you're using the hypnotherapy to shift those negative patterns.
Yes. Okay. So self-awareness, when you're in the hypnosis process, some people are better at feeling their body, tuning into their body than others. I can usually tell if it's a heart and mind disconnection, if they're struggling to feel it. I can usually find that in the talking phase before we do the hypnosis. So I will be asking them then, when they have a feeling, can they feel it in their body? And no one's usually ever asked them that before. So when they then do it, they can usually find it. So I can help make sure they are they have enough self-awareness that by the time they're in my chair, they can do that again. Okay. But the topic of self-awareness is, I'm glad that you brought it up, because not only do we have profound changes in here, but I try to cover every basis. So I'm also teaching my clients what they can do on the conscious level to keep this benefit going when they leave, because they won't always have me. And self-awareness is massive. It needs to be trained in all of us, because all of the answers really are inside of us. And I have lots of little lectures I give them and practices that they can choose if they resonate, to keep that self-awareness alive in their lives, because it's one of the most empowering tools we need, but no one's ever taught us that. No one taught us this in school. But for example, if you're very good at being self-aware, you don't have to get into conflicts. If somebody is insulting you or putting you down, belittling you or whatever, and you know immediately to go inside, that person's right there. Okay. But go inside and go, oh, how do I feel? You only ever always have to just own that. You're not in charge of why they're this way or what they did. They might be being a jerk, but all you have to do is go inside and say, oh, what do I need? And then you can say what you need. Wow, I'm really taken aback by what you've just said. I need some time to process that, and I might need some distance for a bit. I didn't get in any conflict. I just went inside, right. Self-aware. Here's what I need. And then they can do whatever they do with that. But I'm not in charge of them. Where people who have less self-awareness need to grow that is they'll immediately jump into, how dare you, but who knows why? They're just hurting too. So we can avoid those reactions by just going immediately inside. Oh, how did that affect me? Oh my gosh, I'm feeling very threatened right now. I need some time, or I need you to restate that in a different way, So right. Self-awareness gives us so much freedom that I teach my clients that. So on the ongoing basis, their life can keep getting better and easier and lighter and more free and joyful.
I was going to say that kind of pretty much answered my next question, because I know you've helped individuals overcome deep-rooted fears and traumas, but I was wondering about the lasting healing. So that's basically how you do it to make sure the healing lasts, and it does. And do they revert back, or have you ever had them kind of revert back?
Great question. So I want to make sure they don't. And I give them the tools while they're here with me, but that's also why I started my podcast, because I was realizing these consciousness tools, that I call them, there for every human being. And again, as a school teacher, it just hurt me so much that the most important tools that we need to make our lives work, we weren't taught those things. And so I had to do a podcast so I can get those tools out to everybody, and so that my clients would have that to rely on and remember and keep practicing, so they wouldn't need to keep coming back. And what I find is, the people who do, sessions with me, their lives get better and better. But sometimes they do, a new challenge will come and they'll know they can come back to me, and they do not revert all the way back. It's not like that ever. It's just that, okay, I want to have all the supports in place for this new thing that I'm facing. So I'm going to get my hypnotherapist back in my corner for this next thing, so it'll be faster and easier than it would be without her.
Right. And it's called Shift is Happening podcast,
yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I have the QR code up there, so that will take you directly to the podcast, because it's not on YouTube, right? It's just on that link there.
Yeah, it's just on Spotify, Apple Music, but no, not on YouTube. I don't have a video component yet. I'm going to be working on that later. But in that one, I do tell a bit of my personal story at the beginning, because I want my listeners to decide if they want to, listen to me or not. So I kind of go into my personal story, how I got to this point, so they can go, yeah, I like her, I want to stay with her, or yeah, not for me. That's got to be up to them.
As I always tell people, I love when people can share their journey, because then people can relate or resonate with you, and see if it fits.
Yes.
So how do you approach helping clients navigate the feelings of powerlessness and inadequacy through hypnosis? Yeah.
Well, similar to talk therapy, I have to get to what contributed to that. If they can see, how did it get there? When did I feel that way before? Then they can see on a cognitive level, that I probably had no choice but to believe that. And that's how it usually almost always starts. We had no choice but to believe it. So everyone's family tried their best. Every family is imperfect to varying degrees, including my own. I know that, I've raised twin 18-year-olds, and now that they're 18, I'm like, I wish I could do the toddler years over, but I can't. I can't. So mine's imperfect too. And I'm a certified parent coach in addition to being a hypnotherapist. So every family is imperfect because we're learning as we're going. And some people are really into doing their inner work and others aren't. And so that pain that they took on is just getting spread right down to the next generation. And so when they can see that it started there, then they can start to see, that's why I always feel this way. And that can help them already start to feel like maybe it's not my fault. And so that's where we begin. But I don't have to do what a typical cognitive behavioral therapist would. I don't have to uncover every detail about the family history. I only need what's relevant to the thing that's hurting them. Okay. That they really want. So that's one thing that makes it very efficient.
Wow. Okay. And I know, so you shared the story with your father-in-law with golf, but yes. Do you have techniques that you use to help athletes optimize their performance through hypnotherapy?
I do. Yes, I do. So I had a phenomenal volleyball player who had an injury. She was in Florida, so I work remotely, and she, both in person and remotely, but she had an injury and then healed from it and was never playing as well since her injury. So I did two things with her. One was I used the age regression to where the injury was, so she could see it was circumstantial. It was a fluke, totally unlikely to happen again. And then second, I helped her see all of the work she had done, that she had put in for this volleyball career, and she had put in a lot of work. And I had her see that if there's anything good in this universe, it would want her to have the triumph of all of that work being her dream coming true. And then I had her visualized with her when she was in hypnosis. I had her picture her doing the thing, doing the skills perfectly, feeling like she's springing off the floor when she's jumping, feeling like her shoulder and arm are so strong. She's like Thor when she hits, just visualizing that over and over and over again. And so that every single thing in her subconscious would believe that this is me, this is her. And she started, she played so phenomenally after that her mother's friend in the stand said, "What is going on with Lucy? What did she do? She's amazing." So then that lady hired me for her daughter, and that player got a full ride Division I scholarship, which was her dream.
Wow.
Because of what I mean, I know I contributed. I can't take credit, but I
No, but
contributed to what she did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's amazing when you can do that and help someone, and make such an impact in somebody's life.
This is why I will do it until I die.
It's clearly you love what you do, because you can just see you light up when you share these stories, and I love it. It's there's too many people doing things that they don't really love doing. They just do it to make ends meet. But
and I can help them with that. I can help them.
I bet you can.
They should feel this joy too. They should, get the courage to follow their, or even just find a more true thing, because we all deserve it. And so they should come to me if they're doing that. I feel very badly for them, because this is amazing to love your work this much.
And I think we all have plenty of broken records going on in our head.
Yes, I know I did.
From past environment, surroundings, whatever, they all add up.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
So can hypnosis assist individuals in taming their inner voice and cultivating a more positive self-dialogue?
Oh my gosh, yes. So when it comes to the inner voice, I have a lot that I say about that on my podcast, and I'm writing a book now about that very thing, about how getting that totally tamed. And that could be a whole other episode, but when it comes to hypnosis, that's the biggest, most effective tool for taking the biggest chunk of that out of your life. And so people will say after they get to that core wound, they'll say, where's this calm coming from? How am I feeling so calm? I've heard that exact question so many times, and I light up when I hear it. It truly makes them feel different on the inside. Like it's just quiet in here now. Like I can just live life. I don't have to follow this agenda anymore. Like I have to be perfect. That's a big one. I have to be perfect, or I have to work harder than everybody else, or, it's just gone. And then you just get to live. It's freedom. And it's a massive tool for that. And then I can help with all the conscious level stuff to practice on the daily, so that never goes away. Yeah,
that's wonderful. I know a few people that can use that. We all can use a little fine tuning, but that's a huge one.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I always call it the rat race. Too many people get caught up in that rat race and just go, and they burn out.
Oh, absolutely. And they don't know that they should put joy and their own well-being as the number one priority. And it took me way too long to learn that myself. But when they do, the rat race shrinks. It's like, when I matter too, and I before I wake up, if I'm not in a good state, the number one thing I have to do is get myself in a good state. That whole day gets better. But they'll go straight to their to-do list first. That's one of my tools. Don't go to your to-do list until you are all good in here.
Yeah.
And then start.
It's just overwhelming, more overwhelm.
Yes. I don't even do a to-do list anymore.
I only do when I absolutely have some things, but it's more of a reminder. And then it's like, okay, was that really that important? No, that can wait.
Yeah, get it out of your head so it doesn't haunt you all day.
Yeah. Or so I can sleep.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's a good time for a to-do list. Absolutely.
Yeah. So what ways can hypnotherapy support individuals in cultivating healthier relationships and breaking free from toxic dynamics? Because there's a lot of people I know that get stuck in toxic relationships or environments.
You have such great questions. You are best question. Thank you. When it comes to relationships, this may sound a little woo-woo, but it's true. I have an episode on my podcast that says that one person can change a relationship dynamic. You don't always have to have both people in the room. In fact, I've had a lot of relationships that by having one client, not their partner, come, that relationship transforms. So dynamics get built in almost every relationship because one person's one way and then the other person thinks, oh, I better adjust to that because if I do this, that won't go well. So then they make that adjustment to this person. And that's going on then for a while until both people kind of shrink because of the relationship. Because he's this way, I kind of have to be this way, and eventually we feel like, wait a minute, I don't know if I'm myself anymore. And that's how they get built. And there's nothing wrong with that. But once you feel that feeling, it is time to shift it, time to change it up. And the way that can work is by when I have a client coming more to me, more honest than you feel safe doing with your partner, this person, you express that I'm feeling hemmed in. I'm feeling like I can't say anything or it won't work no matter what I do. And I get them in touch with their own pain, and we release, because the reason they're in that dynamic is because they don't have full love for themselves yet either. So they don't feel safe to take risks, because what if the person goes away? So they're in some way not being fully themselves. And then when they, in my office, become more free and more fully themselves, and then I give them communication tools about, you never have to get into a conflict. You always only ever have to be what you are and just say one sentence about how you feel. Then that person can take that information in and go, oh, she feels that way. What do I do with it? It's a longer conversation, but when one person changes to where their energy changes and they know it, and they're not willing to do the exact same thing they've always done, but they're going to do something that's not unkind. It's not confrontative or confrontive. It's just something new. The person will feel it. And then when that person feels it, they'll have this feeling of like, oh, something's different. Oftentimes that's like, oh, is she pulling away from me? Or they might get nervous, and then they'll try a little harder. And then they're trying a little harder. This person's getting more of what they always wanted to get. And so then it kind of goes from there. It's really beautiful. So that's actually my favorite thing to work on, is a relationship, because that's one of my strongest areas of expertise. And especially with whatever you're feeling, knowing how to communicate it in a way that's not going to cause harm ever.
Right.
And always only speaking your truth. And it just has tremendous power.
Yeah. And that is amazing. And that's true, because if you don't react, or I think they expect you kind of to react a certain way, when you react, it just kind of keeps compiling. But when you don't react that way, then it kind of gets them thinking.
Yes, it does. And now possibilities open up in that space. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. So beyond breaking habits, what other areas of personal growth and empowerment can hypnotherapy be applied to effectively?
Okay, great. So breaking habits, fears, all kinds of fears. I've got a fear of, I've had 2 or 3 fear of flying people that have totally gone on airplanes after, fear of needles, any kind of fear that's holding you back. Procrastination is another one. Relationship issues we've talked about, trauma and healing we've talked about, sports performance, smoking, of course. I had a gal who picked her face. And that went completely away. And not only that, but all sorts of other things changed. This is an interesting one. I had a guy who came to me for nightmares, and the nightmares totally went away. And then he realized he was having this habit of picking at his jeans. And he said, I've been doing this forever. And I'm like, well, I wonder why. It started in 8th grade. He had a trauma in 8th grade. So we age regressed to that 8th grade, convinced the 8th grader that was never going to happen again. He got all of the lessons from that. He knows how to navigate people now, and he'll never happen again. And then he never did it again. So
wow.
That was another really interesting one.
Was he kind of not even aware really that he was doing it? It was just something he always did?
Yeah, he was in my office. We'd already done the night. We'd already done these other things. And I said, well, is there anything left? And then he noticed, wait a minute, I'm doing this thing with my jeans. I think I've been doing that forever. It was one of those inadvertent things. And then we got rid of that too.
Wow.
Yeah.
So have you worked with people that have, like, I know a lot of people nowadays have PTSD, or, because you mentioned nightmares, which reminds me of people that have PTSD, especially for veterans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I have a client. Yes, I have a client right now that has complex PTSD, and she is in mental health herself, and she identifies as having complex PTSD, and she has had great results. We're just getting started. We've got more to do. We've only had 1 session, but even after the 1 session, she had great results. She let me know. So I fully expect that to work. I actually have someone who was a meth addict, and that is extremely powerful. And she just got permission to get her son back. So
Wow.
some really big things. I can't claim to, there are some complex psychological issues that I've never encountered, and I never know, for sure I can say that I can do that. But the ones I know I've done, those I have a guy with bipolar who has had tremendous results. And yeah, so I'm sure there are some psychological issues that I might feel intimidated by, but so far I've had great results with a lot of those.
And you can't argue with that.
Yeah.
I think that's wonderful. So you were talking about a little bit before, you do work with people remotely. It's not always in person, correct?
Yes. So I love to work in person, but I get just as good results remotely. The only thing that I need from them is to be able to create a quiet space for it. If they have a dog at home that's going to come bring a bone or bring a toy, that won't work. But if they can create a quiet space where they can comfortably recline for the hypnosis part, I've had just as good of results remotely. I had a woman whose back healed, and that was remote. She was, the first time she came to me, she was laying on the couch in a very precarious position. 3 sessions later, she's sitting upright. And I said, "How are you doing?" And she started to tell me how this really annoying colleague, she just didn't mind her anymore. She's actually appreciative of what she's learning by her being in her life. And I'm like, that's wonderful. And then she tells me how her relationship has gotten better. I'm like, that's wonderful. And I said, I can't help it, but notice that you're sitting upright. And she goes, "Oh yeah, my back completely healed." Like, well, that's what you came to me for. You didn't want to tell me. It kind of sneaks in. It kind of sneaks in, and you're like, "Oh, I'm feeling better." Crazy.
Wow. That is amazing. That is amazing. So you mentioned you're writing a book.
I am. I don't have a title yet, but
Okay.
I am writing a book because I need people to know these consciousness tools that I'm talking about on my podcast. Even if they never set foot in my office, they need to know those tools. And I also want people to know the profound changes that I've seen that can happen. I'm hoping that more therapists will get certified in hypnotherapy so they can add that to their toolbox, because it's so fast that I want, just my mission in life is to heal this world. I know how I used to feel, and now I know how I feel now. And I want that for everybody, because, so yes, that's the reason for the book. Yes.
Another reason I'm glad you're here, because that's what I always think. We could do more together. And I was like, there's fascinating people all over the world. There's so many things out there that people just don't know about.
That's right. And so what's so wonderful about what I do is I can unlock everybody's unique genius. I have an AI technical genius that has, childhood trauma. I want that guy. He's got visions for how we can move into AI that's good for humanity, good for nature, good for this future of everything. I can unlock that guy, and he can go use his talents to change the world.
Yeah. So what would that process look like if someone wanted to connect with you?
Well, there are a couple ways. If they go onto my website, it's shifthypnosis.org. And I'm in Vancouver, Washington, or Ridgefield, Washington is a suburb of that. So make sure that that's me. You'll see, if you look at my website, find me. But on there, they can sign up for a session immediately on my sign up page, or they can email me, or they can even text me on my business phone. So that's all there. And even if my calendar gets filled, I ask them to reach out anyway, because sometimes I'll work ridiculous hours if it doesn't fit in with my calendar, because I really am on such a mission to do this. But they can email me, text me, or just sign up for a session.
Wonderful. Have you ever had anyone that you weren't able to help, or maybe wasn't a good fit, or you haven't hit that yet?
Great question. There was only one. And the reason was he was supposed to come in at 2:00, but then he texted me and he said, "I can't. I just got scheduled a meeting at 2:00. Can I come in at any other time?" And I said, "Well, all I have is 7 a.m. And he's like, "Well, I'm not a morning person, but okay, whatever." So he came way in. His boss had just reamed him. So he was so flustered by what his boss had said that he couldn't relax that day. And so I was, trying to induce him, and he just said, "This isn't going to work." And he was right. He was too preoccupied. He needed to go deal with that, with that boss, or it wasn't going to work. That was the only time, though. I've had a lot of people say, "I'm going to be the one who can't be hypnotized." And they all say that. And it's never happened except for that one time because of the boss.
I had a person that tried it once with me, and I was one of the very few that she couldn't be able to, but I would like to think I'm more enlightened now. I've learned more. I've learned to be more open. So
Right.
may have
Probably.
we may have to try that sometime. We
I'd
have
love.
a few minutes left. Would you like to share any more stories or what you want the audience to take away from this?
Okay, sure. Well, I actually had one woman today, right before getting onto this show, that was remarkable. She came in and just said, you know, she would just start crying. And she said, I've always not felt enough. And she was probably in her 60s, you know, I've always felt not enough. And I could tell she was ready to get to this pain right now. And I never would do a deep dive session on the first session. But she seemed so ready. And I said, we got to get this pain out of you today. And I said, are you willing and ready? She goes, I'm so ready. I said, okay. So she had the readiness and she had the desire.
Mm-hmm.
So we did. And I kid you not, the woman who walked in my office is not the woman who walked out of my office. She finally knew once and for all that she always was enough and it was never about her. And so I had her finish two sentences. Now I know, and she said, now I know I never had to be perfect because I just am. I can make mistakes. And then I said, and because I know that and I feel, and she said, free. And her whole countenance showed it. And that woman was not the same woman. She walked out. To see that happen more, over and over, you could see how I must get this message out and how it's driving me. Mm-hmm. So that's my main message, that if you are a therapist and you feel like maybe results could be happening faster for the clients you love and care about, I would encourage you to explore hypnotherapy. And if you are a person who has been struggling and you're tired of it, you have nothing to lose. It doesn't take that many sessions and there's nothing scary. It is worth trying.
Yeah,
That's
definitely. It doesn't hurt anything, right? It hurts you more to not try or to not explore than it does
for sure. For sure. Yeah. Yeah. And if they do go on my website, I need to gather more reviews because I have a lot more clients but my reviews are there and they're testimonials from clients who've had good results. So they'll see that every single one of them is really thrilled with what's happened in their lives.
I can imagine. And like I said, I love that you do that because, like I said, you just really light up, which I love when you talk about that. So you can clearly see the passion you have for doing this and the fact that you can help so many other people is just a beautiful thing.
Thank you so much. And thank you so much for having me on. It's just an absolute pleasure. Your questions were so right on and it was so much fun.
Well, thank you. And I appreciate you taking the time to be here with everybody today.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So everybody, I want you to have a wonderful week. Thank you for joining us and we will see you next week. And don't forget, if you haven't subscribed already to Mindful Mondays with Laura Cross on YouTube, do so. That way you will see this interview and many others that you won't want to miss out on. So have a wonderful week and we'll see you next time.